In the quiet suburbs outside Chicago, neighbors believed they knew the man who lived at 8213 West Summerdale Avenue. He was friendly, reliable, the kind of man people invited to neighborhood barbecues. Parents trusted him with their children, and when he showed up wearing bright makeup and a red wig, performing as Pogo the Clown, kids would laugh and run toward him. No one suspected that beneath that painted smile lived one of the most terrifying killers in American history. Because while the neighborhood slept, bodies were being buried beneath the house. Dozens of them, young men who had vanished without explanation. For years, families searched for answers. And all the while, the man responsible was standing right in front of them. His name was John Wayne Gacy, and the truth about what he did would shock the entire nation. John Wayne Gacy was born on March 17, 1942, in Chicago. From the outside, his family looked normal, but inside the home, things were very different. His father, John Stanley Gacy, was an alcoholic with a violent temper. He often humiliated his son, calling him weak, calling him stupid, sometimes beating him. The young boy desperately wanted approval from his father, but it never came. Instead, the insults continued, the abuse continued, and something dark began to grow inside him. As a child, Gacy also struggled with health problems. He suffered from a heart condition that kept him out of sports. While other boys played outside, he stayed indoors, isolated, alone. Observers later believed this isolation created deep resentment, a resentment that would eventually turn into something far more dangerous. As Gacy grew older, he tried desperately to appear normal. He became active in school activities, joined community groups, learned how to charm people. By the time he reached adulthood, he had mastered something important: the ability to wear a mask. And people believed the mask. In the 1960s, he moved to Waterloo. There, he married his first wife. For a while, it seemed like he had built a respectable life. He managed several KFC restaurants. He became active in local politics. Neighbors admired him. But behind the scenes, something disturbing was already happening. Young boys began coming to his house. At first, people didn't question it. He was a manager, a community volunteer, someone young workers trusted. But in 1968, the truth finally began to surface. A teenage employee accused Gacy of sexual assault. The investigation quickly uncovered multiple victims, and the man everyone trusted was arrested. He was convicted of sodomy involving minors. The sentence was 10 years in prison. Gacy was sent to the Anamosa State Penitentiary. But even in prison, he appeared to behave well. Too well. Guards described him as polite, helpful, model behavior. After serving only 18 months, he was granted early parole. And with that, one of the worst mistakes in American criminal justice history was made. Because once he was released, the killings began. After prison, Gacy returned to the Chicago area. He settled in the suburb of Norwood Park Township. There, he bought the house that would later become infamous, the house on Summerdale Avenue. He started a construction company called PDM Contractors. The business specialized in remodeling pharmacies and restaurants. And it gave him something extremely useful: access to teenage employees, runaways, young men looking for quick work, perfect victims. Around this time, Gacy created a new persona. He began performing as Pogo the Clown and Patches the Clown at parties and charity events. He wore colorful costumes, painted his face, told jokes, made balloon animals. Children loved him, parents trusted him, and the community saw him as a generous volunteer. But later, investigators would discover something chilling. Gacy once said, "Clowns can get away with murder." At the time, no one realized he meant it literally. In 1972, the killings began. His first known victim was Timothy McCoy, a teenage boy who had traveled from Michigan. Gacy picked him up at a bus station, invited him to stay the night. The next morning, Gacy later claimed he woke up to find the boy standing in the doorway holding a knife. What happened next would become part of Gacy's twisted justification. He said he killed in self-defense. but investigators later believed the story was fabricated. After killing McCoy, Gacy buried the body in the crawl space beneath his house. And something terrifying happened. He realized he could get away with it. Over the next 6 years, dozens of young men disappeared around Chicago. Many were last seen speaking with a man offering construction work. That man was Gacy. His method became disturbingly consistent. He would lure victims to his house, often with promises of work. Once inside, he would perform what he called a handcuff trick. He would show the victim a pair of handcuffs and demonstrate how easy it was to escape them. Then he would ask the victim to try. Once the cuffs were locked, there was no escape. Investigators later discovered Gacy used a torture method called the rope trick. A stick twisted into a rope loop around the victim's neck, slowly tightening, strangling them. One by one, the victims died, and one by one, they were buried under the house. The crawl space beneath Gacy's house was small, dark, barely tall enough to move through. But over time, it filled with bodies. By the late 1970s, the smell became noticeable. Neighbors complained about strange odors. Gacy told them it was a sewer problem. Sometimes he spread lime beneath the house to reduce the smell. Sometimes he burned candles constantly. But the truth was horrifying. The bodies of dozens of victims were decomposing just feet below the floor. Not everyone died. One victim survived. His name was Jeffrey Rignall. Gacy abducted him in 1977, drugged him, assaulted him, but Rignall survived, and he did something extraordinary. After recovering, he helped police identify Gacy. At the time, however, the evidence wasn't strong enough to arrest him. So Gacy walked free, and the killings continued. On December 11, 1978, a teenager named Robert Pius disappeared. He had been working at a pharmacy. Witnesses reported he left the store to speak with a contractor offering him a job. That contractor was Gacy. When Robert never returned home, his mother reported him missing. And this time, police took it seriously. Detectives from the Des Plaines Police Department began investigating. They interviewed Gacy. At first, he seemed cooperative, but something about him felt wrong. Soon investigators uncovered disturbing details. Gacy had a criminal record involving young boys. Multiple missing men had connections to him. And then detectives obtained a search warrant. When they entered the house, they noticed something strange. A strong odor coming from the crawl space. Even with suspicion, police needed stronger evidence. So they began 24-hour surveillance. For days, detectives followed Gacy everywhere. They watched him closely. But then something unexpected happened. Under pressure, Gacy began to unravel. On December 21, 1978, he invited his lawyer to a meeting with police. And during that conversation, he confessed, not to one murder, not to two, but to dozens. Police returned to the house, this time prepared for what they might find. When investigators opened the crawl space, the smell was overwhelming. Soon they discovered the first remains, then another, then another. In total, 29 bodies were found buried beneath the house. Others had been dumped in the nearby Des Plaines River. The final victim count would reach 33 young men and boys, making Gacy one of the most prolific serial killers in American history. The trial of John Wayne Gacy began in 1980. His defense argued insanity. They claimed he had multiple personalities, but prosecutors rejected that idea. They argued something far simpler. Gacy knew exactly what he was doing, and he had carefully hidden it for years. After weeks of testimony, the jury delivered its verdict. Guilty on all counts. Gacy was sentenced to death. He spent 14 years on death row at Menard Correctional Center. Even there, he continued to manipulate attention. He painted disturbing clown portraits, gave interviews, sometimes claiming innocence, sometimes bragging. But eventually, his time ran out. On May 10, 1994, the execution was carried out. The location, Stateville Correctional Center. He died by lethal injection. Outside the prison, crowds gathered. Some celebrated. Others simply stood in silence. because nothing could undo what had happened. 33 young lives were gone forever. The story of John Wayne Gacy remains one of the most disturbing cases in American criminal history, not just because of the number of victims, but because of the double life he lived. A friendly neighbor, a community volunteer, a clown who entertained children, and beneath his house, a graveyard. A reminder that sometimes the most dangerous monsters are the ones who look the most normal. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe.